and they may not change something that I thought that they could change. I don't have any memory of that, but I still know that sentence doesn't sound right, and I might still line edit that same sentence over and again. So I'm consistent in that way, which is a nice thing to know. So people always like, well, should I leave my comments so that you can tell what I've changed? And I'm like, no, because if I still don't think it works, it's still going to come out of me. But at the same time, I'm also getting attached to what my interpretation is of a particular book. So a copy editor coming in fresh and new, that copy editor's job is specifically to prepare the book for publication. So they're looking at grammar, they're looking at punctuation, they're looking at consistency, the consistency of spelling, the consistency of character names, the consistency of a time schedule, which, you look at as a developmental editor. The copy editor.
Oh my God, the time schedule.
Say that again?
The time schedule. I remember when my book was getting edited, like flying a wall. It was like, okay, so what day is it now? You said Tuesday. And I'm like, I don't know what day it is. Like, I didn't even, there was some parts where I did not write an actual timeline, so they would make me think. And I was like, wow, I didn't have an idea how organized.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. Like, if you see a copy editor's notes, you probably got like a style page. Did you get a style page with your book?
Yes.
Yeah, where they write down how every name is spelled. They really sort of jot it down so they can be consistent with that.
The streets I made up. They would say, is that a real street in Miami? Or we looked for it, we couldn't find it. I'm like, why y'all Googling everything?
Yeah. Now, copy editors I just feel that copy editors are, they're gifts from God. It's a very particular type of, they are. I worship at the throne of copy editors. I worship at their
Let's move on to, speaking of, we're still talking on the topic of editing. I know a couple of people that they might be great writers and come up with concept, but they're not that great with grammar, and they're probably not that great with editing, self-editing. And they tell me, oh, I'll hire an editor. So what would you say to somebody like that? I'm concerned with this one particular person that he thinks he can just hand off his work to somebody and he barely spell check or anything. It's just it's really hard. How do you deal with people that are handing their work a certain way? Or do you not accept it at all?
Yeah. So you're breaking up a little. There's some people who might be great writers, but they don't like the editorial process. And they think that they're hiring an editor to sort of clean things up for them. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a problem. That's a big problem because you're not a writer if you're not invested in the editing. You might be somebody who's a great idea. You might be somebody who can type, but you're not a writer unless you're an editor.
Wow.
And if you think that you can hire somebody to do those types of things, you're not hiring an editor, you're actually hiring a ghostwriter.
Oh my God. Thank you. I needed you to say this on recording. You froze again, I think.
You're not hiring.
Okay.
You're not hiring an editor.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. You really want a ghostwriter.
And I tried to help this individual, as a friend of mine, and I couldn't even get past the first 3 paragraphs. It was torturing. And I said, I can't. And I'm not an editor for as a business. I was just doing it as a friend to kind of give my feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's kind of a nightmare. That's kind of a nightmare.
It was a nightmare.
Someone who I make suggestions. I make suggestions, as you know, as you have experience. I make suggestions, and there are times when I'll have clients who are like, "Just tell me what to do," and I'm like, "That's not what I'm doing," because really, I mean, if you take a step back and you look at it from a different level, right? when I mentored a lot of young editors, what I would say to them was, the name on the copyright page is the writer's, right? So this is their contribution to culture. You are invisible, and our goal is to be invisible. Our goal is to become so melted into the voice of our authors that nobody ever knows that we exist. Editors are not here to be the stars. We are completely behind the scenes people. And history is going to have Simone Kelly's name on the cover. It's not going to have Sharice Fisher's name on the cover. So somebody who wants to sort of displace that responsibility on you is actually not honoring whatever was given to them creatively. That's how I see it.
Okay. So the next question is, once the book is completed, how do you go about getting an agent, or should you get an agent? People just assume you have to get an agent, but could you self-publish?
If you want to be published by a major publisher, you really need an agent, because we are the gatekeepers for editors, and then editors are ultimately gatekeepers of a different sort. But we're that first line of defense, right? So it's very difficult to communicate directly with a publisher if you don't have an agent. So if you want to be published by a major publisher, you need an agent. And getting an agent is not an easy process. You will hear loads of stories about people who sent 40 query letters to agents and were rejected by 39. And they had the tenacity and the determination to keep pursuing and keep trying to find an agent that was a right fit for them. A couple of ways to find an agent. I think the best way to find an agent, I know that the best way people can contact me is by networking, right? So when Simone, you tell me to read by someone, I will read it. I'm more inclined to read it. And so if that person identifies themselves as a writer and identifies themselves as wanting to be an author, it's important for them to find their tribe of other authors. People who are like-minded, people who are also pursuing their goals, so they can learn from that person and then they can network with that person. So writers' conferences, I think, are so important and so key. They're important because they actually are giving you information. Like this whole experience that we're having is information that we're giving to somebody. And writers' conferences give you information, but writers' conferences also give you an opportunity to network with published writers and unpublished writers, which I think helps you kind of generate ideas about finding an agent. So I find clients through current clients. I find clients through going to writers' conferences, which I go to several. I think that there is a writers' conference that's held by Grub Street in Boston, which is a really superior. Oh, hi, Christina. I'm about to tell you. So they're in Boston every year in April, in March or April, mostly April. Grub Street, which is a writers' conference, or writers' community, a writing school kind of, has a conference called Grub Street. I think it's a superior conference. There's a conference in Virginia called the James River Writers Conference. It's an excellent conference. Every single writing institution has a conference, and they invite editors to come in, and we take pitches from writers. And so that's a really great way of finding an agent. Of course, there's always the cold call, the cold query letters, going to the websites for agents who you think would be interested in your book, doing the research to understand, okay, what type of book is my own book, and who am I as a writer? And knowing who I am and what my book is will help me figure out like how to find an agent who represents people like myself and represents books like the one that I have written. So, once you do that. once you do that, is there specific conferences for specific genres? There are. I think that if you're doing a romance, there's a Romance Writers Association. If you're doing mystery, there's something called the what is it called? The Bukharan Conference. There's absolutely, if you're doing erotica, there are conferences specific to erotica as well. I think that something like a Grub Street. I'm sorry?
I said I wanted to jump in real quick just to give an example of I think Christina, I'm mute you real quick. Hopefully we can hear you. She has a really cool concept of a book she's working on. And I met Christina. This is perfect now, but networking. I met Christina. Hi, Christina. We can hear you now, I think. Can you say something? It's like delayed. I met her at a workshop that I taught for authors at the library in Fort Lauderdale. And she has a really cool concept, real brief, where her family, she comes from a crime family in Miami. She has a really juicy story to share about her life experience. Is it fictional or is it like based on your life?
So wait a minute. So Christina, why don't you tell me about your book?
Okay, so first of all, it's a fictional novel, but it's based on my story, coming of age, growing up to a criminal father in Miami in the 80s. So that's the reaction I usually get. And then that's basically what it's about. I talk a lot about how the recession also hit the criminal organizations and industries and how they dealt with that in the 80s. Wow. And really learned how to survive. So, and it's written from my perspective as a child growing up and all that. And then how the expectations were different in our family. Just some things like I was taught very young how to answer the proper way to talk to a police officer, like the only right thing to say is no, it's the only correct answer ever. Never write anything down.
No or silence.
Yeah, no or silence. Never write anything down. Things like that. And then also a lot of things that are very Miami. So, just a lot of stuff that happened on Miami Beach and, things that I hear other people that are writing about Miami or, some of the stuff that's in some of the shows now, like the HBO specials and stuff. And just like that stuff resonates with me. So I just figured it's time to write it. Yeah. And it's fictional because yeah. So then that friction side of it also allows me to be creative and bring that side of things to it. So that's my elevator pitch.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. But would you describe that as a genre book? Is it true crime? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think it is. I think it's morphed into like more of a coming age story. Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. So when you say genre, people, when you think of a genre, you think of mysteries, romance, erotica, science fiction.
Right.
Those are the genres, they're a particular type. Your book wouldn't be considered genre. A coming of age book is a type of book,
right?
But it's not a genre.
Okay.
I know that seems weird, but it's a type of book, but it's not a genre. So like women's fiction or what they call. Say that again?
I could have sworn it was a crime book, but in the crime category, but I guess I'm wrong.
No, a true crime book is very specifically that's also a genre, and it is about a crime that happened in real life, and it's nonfiction, a true crime book.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess the first conference you mentioned, the Grub Street conference, would be like a recommendation for that?
Yeah, I go probably every other year to Grub Street. And what I like about it is that there's there's probably about 50 classes over a 3-day weekend. And some of the classes are focused on craft and some of the classes are focused on marketing. Some of the classes are focused on networking and publicity. So it's really something where you can learn the entire process, the entire book publishing process. And there are lots of editors that go.
Oh,
And a lot of us that go connect with a really strong one. And it's in Boston. Boston's always fun.
right. Well, thank you.
So if you're near Boston, but I've also gone to a really great conference. I've gone to a great conference this year in Brooklyn called the Slice Writers Conference. I went to a conference in Austin, which is run by the Texas League of Writers. So, Google is your friend. You don't necessarily need to go to Boston. You don't necessarily need to go to Virginia. You don't necessarily need to go to Texas. You would be surprised to learn that there is a writers conference right in your neighborhood.
Right. So it's okay to hit the small. I don't need to hit a big name conference necessarily. I can hit
right.
a smaller.
I think that small is sometimes, I think that every conference is an investment in what you're doing.
Right.
And sometimes starting small, I think that Grub Street can be very overwhelming to someone who's completely new to the process.
Right.
Because there's so many choices. So starting small is not a bad idea at all.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Christina, for sharing your book. We're going to move on to, we only have a few more minutes left. Time running out fast. So a question I want to ask you is, what do agents look for in an author? When you get approached, what are some things you look for that makes you say, yes, I want that?
I think different agents look for different things. We are agents, which means that we have to believe that we can sell a book because we get paid when we sell a book. So I think that agents are looking for something that they feel that they can sell. I personally, when I take on a client as an agent, when I'm reading it, I want to feel something. I want to feel amused. I want to feel inspired. I want to feel surprised. I want to feel a strong reaction to something first and foremost. Whether it is that, oh my God, the way this sentence is gorgeous, or whether it is, oh, she is funny, or whether it's like, oh, this is a new twist on something this is something I've never seen before. I, as an agent, want to feel something. And I would dare say that most agents want to feel something because we have to collect that urgency and communicate that urgency to somebody else. If I have a strong reaction to something that I've read, then I can communicate that more effectively. I can be the advocate that I need to be. The second thing that I look for is when I read something, I want to immediately think about 3 editors that I can send it to. Because that's my job, So it's not enough to have a visceral reaction to it. I also have to immediately start thinking, okay, well, who would I send this to? And for me, that number has to be 3 people. I have to feel as though I can get on the phone and pitch 3 people this book. And those 3 people will be people who I think will also have a strong reaction to it, or who work for a publisher who has done books like that before. So those are, for me, the 2 things that I look for: a personal reaction and a way of, and seeing in my mind's eye a way of selling it.
I have another question to add to that. So do you ever look at, does this person have a following? Are they out there networking? Is that a perk if they're, they have a
Say
following?
that again, because you're breaking up. Say that again.
I said, do you ever look for people that maybe they have their own following, they're a networker, they know how to, make their own connections? Does that help?
Yes. So I think you were asking me, is that what you were asking me? Do I look for what type of networker they are?
Well, no, I said, would that be a perk? Or would you, because I know most writers are homebodies. They're not connecting. They're not really out there networking or making connections. So I was wondering if that is something that's a plus. Because I'm trying to get a lot of writers I know to get out of the house.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I think that if I'm dealing with a nonfiction author, I'm certainly thinking about their network. I'm definitely thinking about how they have presented themselves on this topic to a group of people. And I'm thinking about that because publishers are not even going to mess with you unless you have a platform, unless you already have connected with people on the topic that you're writing about. So with nonfiction, that's 100% true. With a novelist, I do like for my clients to be triple threats, meaning that they write a really great story. They are destined to write more than one story, and they are prepared to do the footwork in terms of marketing and publicity that is now required of any author. So I do look for a triple threat, but I have to say that I'm old school because I'm an old lady. I'm old school. So for me, I think that the book itself has to strike me as something special, unique, and powerful. The book itself has to have some value for me, because I do think that there are some elements of marketing and networking that can be filled in. That is a skill set that you acquire in the process. If you got all marketing and all platform and the book itself is kind of flat, then not that exciting.
Right.
Nothing is going to save you. It won't save you.
Because the other thing I was thinking is when you start to promote your book and you meet with people, some authors are very shy. They don't want to do a book reading. They don't want to, shake hands and kiss babies. So I just figured if it's a skill set that people need to start to build up if they don't like to do it already.
Absolutely. So when I do a workshop called the first steps or something. What's it called? Something, but it's about your pitch, how to develop a pitch, how to pitch your book. Okay. And inevitably I get a question from somebody about self-publishing. I get that question often. You either need to you either need to have these characteristics, resilience, tenacity, creativity in terms of marketing. You either have to have those characteristics yourself or be willing to take on those characteristics or be able to hire people to help you take, with those things that are essential. So yeah, somebody who is too shy to go to a reading, that's okay. To be honest, that's okay. But how are you compensating from that shyness? So are you either pushing your way through that shyness to be able to present yourself to the world? Are you doing that? Or are you developing a creative way to compensate for your inability to be in front of people? In this day and age with social media, do you really have to sit and show up at a reading? You don't really have to. I mean, it's definitely a benefit, but if you're able to develop this very unique online marketing, that can compensate for somebody who can't, do cartwheels in front of an audience.
Right. and people know I'm not shy at all, but I did not want to do readings. I didn't want to read from the book. I just was nervous, and people are like, "Why? We want to hear from the author." And I was like, "I don't want to read. We just act it out." So yeah, I had to learn how to practice and do that. So, any last questions, people? We only got a couple of minutes left, literally. I guess not. Can you hear me, Sharice?
I can hear you.
Okay, just making sure. Because you're literally still talking on my screen. So I guess I'm the only one with the slow something going on with the internet. Okay, so everybody has me. Great. So why don't you tell people how they can reach you if they'd like to submit their manuscript, maybe? I don't know. and anything else you want us to know about you before we wrap up?
Is there anything else I would like you to know? I applaud you. I applaud everyone for joining the conversation or listening to this conversation, because I think educating yourself about this endeavor is a very, very important first step. Figuring out whether you have what it takes, figuring out what the steps are that you need to take is so, so important. Because whenever anybody hears I'm an editor, the first thing they're like, oh, I got a book, I got a story. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk, And often I discuss, not often, relatively often, well, too often for my taste, they'll come to me with a whole bunch of questions. And I'm like, you got too many questions. All of those questions you have mean that you have not done the research yourself. Right? So you're in kindergarten and I'm an 8th grade teacher. So you need to go and get from kindergarten to 8th grade before you talk to me, So this sort of an ability to inquire onto this process yourself in this world where the internet can open up everything for you, is key. And if I have somebody who is coming to me with and so what word processing system should I use? If someone's coming to me with such an elemental question, there are no bad questions. Questions are key, but it's you need to explore this a little bit on your own before you get to me, so that I know that you're really interested,
Serious, right. And just tell us the name of the company that you work with and your own company, and then.
So as an agent, I work with the Wendy Sherman Associates Agency. Great bunch of gals that we are, and I love it. And as a freelancer, my company is called The Scribe's Window. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, although I'm barely on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah.
We're on Facebook. Well, thank you so much, Sharice, for giving us your time. And I tell people all the time to take advantage of this kind of opportunity, because it don't come free most of the time, right? So thank you, and wanted to let you guys mark your calendars for the upcoming classes. The next 2 Mondays we have on, the 26th, we're going to be talking a little more about editing 101, and on the 3rd, I'm going to be talking about a promotion novel. I'll talk about some marketing tips. And that's about it, guys. So thank you so much for everything, and I appreciate your time. And yeah, this is going to be available as a recording for the Writers Lab group only for a week. So if you missed the beginning, you'll have access to it. And after that, deleting it, at least from the group. It'll be available for my clients. And for those who want to know more about coaching for authors, definitely hit me up. You guys are in my group already, so just ask me questions about it and just go to ownyourpower.net. Thank you, everybody. Good night, Sharice.
Good night.